Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends, guys. Welcome back to r/EntitledPeople, where people truly believe the world revolves around them and that nobody else matters. And in this episode, a dad and son decide to steal OP's car after he refuses to sell it to them. And it doesn't end well, guys. I hope you enjoy the crazy stories today. Subscribe if you haven't, and hey, don't shake your heads too hard. Okay, so I'm a 33-year-old female. I'm a nurse, and I have a very busy schedule. It's been absolutely crazy the past couple of years. So my husband, who's 36, works an office job, and because he's a family-oriented type of guy, he always hangs out with his family. His family live on a ranch in the middle of nowhere. It's a hassle to go there, and due to my work nature, I don't go to most of their functions. I do, however, make sure to attend the big ones. So last week, his family wanted to host a barbecue party. He wanted me to go with him so badly since all of his brothers were bringing their wives, and they mocked him for coming alone in the past. I said, sorry, but I have a shift to cover at work. My husband then begged, suggested I swap shifts with other nurses who are my friends, and even called them all to beg for them to cover me. I grew irritated and told him to stop it. He then sulked for a whole day, and then he dropped it. So in the morning, and hours before my shift, I discovered that my car's tires were out of air. My husband then offered to drive me to the hospital at 4 p.m., and I agreed. I got ready, and we get in the car, but instead of taking me to the hospital, he drives me straight to his family's ranch. I was dumbfounded and angry after he said he tricked me into attending this barbecue. He then said to my face that I now had to suck it up and sit the shift out. I was so mad, I didn't know what to say. So we get to the ranch, and I sit outside fuming. I waited, and I saw I still had time to make it to the hospital if I figured out a way to get there. So I watched my husband go inside, leaving his keychain right next to me, right where he was sitting. So I took it, rushed back to where all the cars were parked, get into the car, and drove off. His dad saw me and told him. He then starts calling my phone relentlessly, and I turned it off. I got to the hospital in time, but I didn't dare turn my phone on until it was past 8 p.m. I then turned it on and saw tons of angry messages from him berating me, calling me horrible, and a manipulator. So I got on the phone with him and he yelled about the awful stunt I pulled and bailing from the party and making him look bad in front of his family. He then calmed down and said he now knows that work is more important to me, but that he'll never ever trust me again after I basically stole his car and ran away with it. We've been on terrible terms since then. His family are also mad, but I haven't spoken to them about it, nor calcified anything. So am I the a-hole for what I did? I was desperate and worried that missing my shift might cost me my job. Guys, this post was so ridiculous I had to share. Like the audacity of that man. Babe, you know you stole my car and ran with it. Like, how dare you? I can never ever trust you again. Like, I love how he says he can never trust her again when he's the one that probably let the air out of her tires so he could basically kidnap her to take her to a family gathering that she didn't want to go to. Wait, she couldn't go to in the first place. Like, I can't imagine the other ways in which he's selfish, entitled, and controlling over her life. And the fact that that man tries to paint OP as the bad guy in the situation and that he's got her convinced that she's done something horrible by attending work is absolutely ridiculous. She's 100% not the a-hole. So ladies and gentlemen, what would you do if your spouse did this to you? A lot of people are telling OP to pack her bags because this man is potentially dangerous. So I work at a toy store, and I get this crap all the time. But this is the first time that someone demanded a manager over it in the years I've worked here, so here you go. So on this day, a woman comes to my till with 2 items, and the subtotal equals out to more than she has money for. I scan the items, it displays the total including taxes. You know how things go. The woman then looks at the total and she goes, "Wow, I had the right amount before taxes, I swear." She then laughs while sighing and she digs through her purse. She then says to me, "I'm sorry, this is gonna take a while." I tell her that's perfectly alright. I'll call someone else to cash, so we have all the time in the world. So after she rummages through her purse, she manages to get within $3 of the total, and then she sighs and says, "Ugh, $3 short, geez, I'm so sorry, this usually doesn't happen." I say to her, "I'm sorry to hear that. I will hold the item for you until close if you want to come back." She then looks at me and says, "What? Just knock $3 off of it." Now, her face actually turns from being sad and embarrassed to instantly angry and tilting her head at me like I'm stupid. I tell her, no, you can't negotiate store prices. She then looks at me and says, people have literally done this for me at Walmart for like $10. Really? Over $3 you won't give me my stuff? At this point, she's getting louder and she's laughing angrily while looking over to other customers for people to agree with her, and no one is. Once again, I say to her, I can hold the items for you to purchase when you have the money for them. I then pull the items away. The Karen then says, ugh, look, just get me the manager. They always give me deals. It's not okay that I'm being embarrassed like this over $3, and you should feel really bad for not giving me $3 off. So I then call my manager. My manager tells her exactly what I said, that we can hold the items, but we're not gonna keep doing this. The woman then leaves with a scowl after claiming we're overpriced. My manager then lets me know that we did it once for her when her kid was with her, because she wouldn't shut up about how she was gonna get such a nice toy, but now she can't. My manager was present when she used her child as a manipulation tactic, making her daughter cry so she would get a lower price once before. She's an abuser who would rather our store policy of no child is sad in the toy store grant her a discount than be a decent mother. To further expand on why I think she's an abuser, my manager informed me that she's upset her child on purpose to save money, by repeatedly mentioning how nice it would be to have it, but that it just wasn't possible. That's abuse. We owe her nothing. Yeah, so I highly doubt that Walmart would let her do this all the time for up to $10 short, guys. I also hate the fact that she always uses her kid in her manipulation tactics to get discounts. Like, shame on you, lady. I'm also upset that she probably does this everywhere she goes, and that some people do give in. Okay, I was attending an anime convention around 2 years ago, and it was the first time I'd gathered up the courage to cosplay. Doki Doki Literature Club had been out for maybe a month or two and was super popular, so me and my friends decided to go as the main girls, with me of course dressing up as Monika. The whole thing was amazing. Conventions themselves are always fun, but when you're cosplaying, it's a whole new thing. During this time, it wasn't uncommon to have people come up to us and give all 4 of us compliments, or even ask to take pictures with us. Now, it's also important to note that for whatever reason, there's always protesters at these conventions. They're your usual overbearing religious nutjob fun police types, but I have no idea what they actually protest. Anyways, one of the days, we're walking around when this guy who looks to be about our age comes up to me and my friends, and has a conversation with us about our costumes, giving us compliments, etc, etc. He then asked to take some pictures with us, asking for some specific photos. One is where we're all trying to pull at him, and then he wants to take some one-on-one photos with us, with me in the background looking angry or spooky. It makes sense if you've seen or played the game. The final picture is of me holding onto his arm with a big smile while he looks terrified. So after the photo, we're exchanging Instagram info, and I casually ask if he's there with anyone. He got super uncomfortable and he said he was there with his family. As the day goes on, we're messaging each other on Instagram and things start to get a little bit flirty. Eventually, he asked me out to dinner at a restaurant near the hotel we're staying. The date itself was pretty good. He was funny, we watched a lot of the same shows, and he could banter back and forth on differences in opinion. So a few weeks go by and we're dating at this point. We're over at his place, and apparently he hadn't told his parents about me, because they walk in and out of nowhere, they were all like, "Oh, who are you?" Now I'm beyond mortified, but the parents sit down across from us after putting the groceries down, and they start asking questions. What's my name? How did we meet? Etc, etc. Both of them seem very excited to meet me at first. I introduce myself and tell the story of how we met, and then I pull up our photo together with me in the costume and show it to them. They then get these grim looks on their faces, like they just found out that I killed someone, and gave their son a death glare. At this point, they ask me to leave, and I'm asking if I did something wrong and apologized if I did. His mom then says to me, "Well, we want someone modest for our son, and we don't see you two being a good match." I looked at her and said, "What?" "Well, you don't exactly line up with our beliefs at all. Please leave. We need to talk with our son." I tell her I don't understand, and she says, "Do you need me to spell it out? He doesn't need some atheist slut in his life." My boyfriend tries to defend me, and his dad says, "Don't raise your voice to your mother. Walk out your little friend and say goodbye." They argue for another minute or two before my boyfriend walks me out. He then tells me he's sorry and he'll call me later. When he finally calls back, he explains how his parents helped organize some of those protests at those conventions. He said he fought with them for over an hour, and how he was done with their BS after they demanded he never speak to me again. He ended up moving in with me a month after that. It was kind of soon, but he didn't really have anywhere to go since his parents had given him an ultimatum, and apparently his entire family is like that. So on the bright side, we're still together, so at least this story does have a bit of a happy ending. Guys, so before this post, I never even knew that people protested these conventions. Like, just leave those people alone, right? Especially if they aren't bothering anyone. I will say that it was very commendable that OP's boyfriend defended OP, rather than just blindly taking the side of his family. But I do have one question though. If he knew his parents were like this, why the heck are you hiding it, man? Tell the poor girl. Let her know ahead of time that your mom and pops is psycho. A heads up would have been nice. So this story came to me from an old coworker. It happened around 8 years ago and just blew my mind at the time. My coworker, who we'll call Teddy, was an older gentleman, and he lived in one of the nicer parts of the city. A bunch of duplex homes and row homes in a big grid. So late one night, around 1 a.m., there's a hellacious screech, crashing, sounds of breaking glass, more screeching, and crashing. By the time Teddy gets out of bed and into a coat, there is only the sound of car alarms and blinking lights, continuing down the block, starting with his own car out front of his house. Following the damage, there's a line of debris and honking cars, ending up at the twisted wreck of a motorcycle and the riders prone and motionless in the street. Teddy then calls 911, and sometime later, the police and paramedics arrive. Motorcycle driver was later pronounced dead on arrival, and the police say he must have been going close to 100 when he hit Teddy's car. Somehow he held onto the bike, as it continued down the road, hit several other vehicles, and finally hit a panel truck dead on, and that's likely what killed him. The biker wasn't wearing helmets or pads. In fact, he was wearing boxers, a t-shirt, and nothing else, not even shoes. When Teddy got the police report later, it turns out there were amphetamines in his system, which I suppose explains a lot. So Teddy's already not in the greatest shape financially, but the real kicker came a few weeks later. Teddy got a letter in the mail from the mother of the biker threatening to sue him if he doesn't pay her $50,000. This is how I heard about this issue, and I saw the demand letter. It was clearly not written by a real lawyer, but just to make sure, I checked the address, which was an apartment building in the city. And the state bar website did not have any records of a lawyer of that name. The case was utterly preposterous as well. Apparently, Teddy had negligently parked his car in the street, which made him at fault for the kid's drug-induced joyride sudden stop. It went on for about 3 pages, mostly bad legalese and threats that if he didn't pay, they would sue him for millions of dollars. I told Teddy to call his insurance company and forward them the letter. The biker hit his car, so it would be an auto liability whether he was driving it or not. Plus, I was 99% sure that this letter was essentially fraud. So a month goes by with no response from the biker's mom, so Teddy thinks it's all over, right? No. So one day out of the blue, the mom shows up at his house during the day when Teddy isn't home. She began to scream at his wife. It went from "how could you be so heartless, give me money," to "this is all your fault, you are the reason my son died." Now, Teddy's wife took precisely zero crap from anyone. Being a social worker, she knew exactly how to handle unreasonable people. She closed and locked the door, called police, and then called Teddy at work. You could hear this woman ranting even through a closed door. So the cops arrive, the woman was arrested for terroristic threats, disturbing the peace, and trespassing. Teddy and his wife got a protective order, and after that, thankfully, that was the last time they heard from the woman. Teddy's car had some major scratches and dents along the driver's side and a cracked taillight. Other cars were similar, and the panel truck had a massive dent in the rear door. Insurance paid for it, and I assumed they either went after the kid's insurance or his estate. And we never heard anything about the legal threats after he sent them to his car insurance company. Yeah, that was such a crazy post, guys. And I'm pretty sure she faked the papers because I'm certain no lawyer would take the case because it just sounds absurd, right? Like, you can't hold someone accountable for that, especially if their vehicle was parked legally along the street. But I'm also not a lawyer, guys, so I wouldn't know. So a little backstory. I have to go a bit back for that. In April 2018, it was the last day we had freezing temperatures and heavy snow. On that day, I was on my way home from work and I had an accident with my 2006 Ford Focus. I crashed into another driver in front of me because I underestimated the frozen road. And don't worry, neither one of us were harmed in any way. His car had a scratch on the back bumper while my car's bumper broke at the side. The police were called, we exchanged information, and that was the end of it. So I had to bring the car to my mechanic again. And I had enough of it. I had owned the car for 2 years now, and I've already had to make several repairs. So I thought, whatever, I'm gonna try to get a new car. So around a month ago, I found a new car. Finally, after a short time thinking and some dealing with my bank account manager, I am now the owner of a 2018 Ford Focus ST Line Sport Edition. Completely black, except for the roof and the top half of the side mirrors, which were red. The car is great, and when I bought it, it only had around 15 miles. So after I bought the car, I put my old Focus up for sale. Most of the damages were fixed, and me and my significant other cleaned it inside and outside, but I knew I wouldn't get much for it. So I put the base price at €350 with the option of bargaining. I live in the old town of my home city, so in order to not occupy parking spaces and to avoid parking tickets, I parked my car at my grandma's place in the driveway. Her house is on the countryside, so it won't bother anyone, and I could take good pictures for the ad. So 2 days ago, while I was at work, I get a call from an unknown number. The guy left a message that he wanted to take a look at the car. I called him back, told him where the car was, and that we could meet there after my shift was finished, and he agreed. After I'm done my shift, I drive immediately to my grandma's place to wait for him. We both agreed on meeting at 5:30. I was there early, parked next to my old Focus, and went inside to tell my grandma that I was there to sell the car today, and checked if everything was still alright. The kid and his dad arrived half an hour later than agreed, explaining the place was hard to find. I shrug it off because I could tell they weren't from around here. So me and the dad take a look at the car. I explained everything to him, how I fixed the damages, and he asked me how many miles, horsepower, etc., the usual stuff. When I talked to the dad, I noticed the kid wasn't paying any attention. The car was supposed to be for him, according to dad. The kid had his eye on my new Ford Focus instead. He says to me, "Damn, that's a nice ride." I tell him thanks, and he says, "Can I take a ride?" Now I'm very picky because at the time, it's a newer car to me and the kid looked young, and I had a feeling he hadn't had his driver's license for long. So I say to him, "I'm sorry, that's not happening. I just got the car a few weeks ago." The dad then says, "Come on, let the boy have a little fun." I say to him, "I'm sorry, that's not happening. And by the way, we're talking about my 2000 Ford Focus, not my new one." The kid then says, "But I like this car. Dad, buy this one for me." Dad then looks at me and says, "You heard him, he likes this one, so how about you sell us this one instead?" The ad said €350, so how does that sound? I say to him, "Yeah, that's for the 2006 Ford Focus." Dad then says, "Fine, I'll give you €3,000 for the new one." I tell him no, I paid a lot of money for it, and clearly this dad has no idea what cars cost. I told him I was done. If he's not gonna buy my old car, we're finished here. I then turned to my car, pulled my keys out of my pockets, and just wanted to go home. The kid keeps screaming, "Dad, I want the car." At that point, the dad grabs me by the arm and he says, "You heard him. Let me buy your car. Hand over the keys." I then scream at him, "I said no. Let go of me now." So while my eyes were staring at the dad, the kid snatches the keys from my hand. He then unlocks the door and he jumps in. I immediately free myself from the dad and run to the driver's door of my car. The little guy locks the door so I couldn't get inside. So I did the only thing I could, and I stood behind my car to prevent him from leaving. I then say to him, "Hey, tell your kid to get out of the car before I call police." In the commotion, my grandma comes outside and she asks what's going on. I then say to her, "Grandma, go inside and call police. They're trying to steal my..." I couldn't even finish my sentence because the dad shoves me aside so the kid could drive away. He surprised me, so I hit the ground hard and they drove off in my car, while leaving their car behind. I immediately grabbed my phone and called police. Now, as I've mentioned in the backstory, my new Focus was completely black, except for the roof and the top of the side mirrors, which were red, which means my car stands out in my home city. It took police 10 minutes to arrive. One of the officers took mine and my grandma's statement, while the other one radios his colleague from the neighboring towns the description and the license plate of my car. About an hour later, the dad and son come back to the house with my car. The two policemen jumped them at sight. They pulled them out of the car and handcuffed them. The dad tried to talk him and his son out of the situation by telling police that they only did a test drive. The police had none of their BS and they escort them away. They then asked if I wanted to press charges and I agreed. More importantly, I checked my car for damages. It had around 20 miles more than before, and I found ash and cigarette burns in my back seat. I still have to wait for a court date, and if possible, I'll keep you updated. Guys, what an absolutely crazy story. And what's even more outrageous is the fact that they left their car at OP's grandma's house. Like, how dumb can you get? Like, at that point, they shouldn't have even come back, right? Like, stealing a car is stealing a car. You're gonna get charged. So why even come back and pretend you went on a test drive? But hey, that's r/entitled people, guys. I hope you enjoyed today's stories, didn't shake your heads too much, and if you missed the last episode on the channel, an entitled Karen attacks a retired army veteran and learns a lesson she won't forget. Check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.